In today's video, we are reviewing the brand new 2024 Kia Telluride SX Prestige X-Line SUV, which is on its 5th year and quickly becoming one of the most popular SUVs in its class. Does this new one hold up to the prior years? Let's find out. All right, now I'm behind the wheel of this brand new 2024 Kia Telluride SX Prestige X-Line. And you know, I've actually already put maybe a good 4 or 5 hours behind the wheel, so I've got a little bit of experience with this one here now. On the outside, you do have this nice, I actually like the color. I'm usually not a big fan of gray. I'm not a big fan of silver or anything like that, but you know, this is more like a grayish blue. I think they call it wolf gray. It looks nice on the Telluride, especially because of the black wheels it has. Moving along to the front of the car, you'll notice that this is actually very unchanged from prior years. You know, it is still in its first generation and still has, it's only been out since 2019. It was first announced in 2015. So, you know, they're not really to the point of making a whole lot of changes yet. It's already pretty modern, but they did make some very slight changes to the front end, notably in the grille and in the headlights. You can see that the grille has, once again, a lot of these manufacturers are going for like this hexagonal pattern. I don't know, it just seems that's what everybody likes. Let me know in the comments if you like it. But that's one thing that they changed. It's changed ever so slightly that you can barely even tell. Now, they didn't bring back what I heard that they were going to bring back and that many of you actually liked. The old model of the Telluride, on the headlights, it had like orange circles and stuff like that. Well, this model still does not have it. It's just a normal projector LED headlight. But you do have some badging along the back that do say it's a Telluride, as well as the X-Line badge. One thing I do like is that on this X-Line model, the side mirrors are actually painted. They're not just black, you know, plastic factory like that. They're actually painted to match the car. So I like that. On both of the side mirrors, you do also have heated mirrors, so that's always handy. Moving on to the interior, when you open the door, you are greeted by nice black leather seats with white stitching. Now, I will tell you, after spending so many hours in the seats, I'm not really a huge fan of the comfortability of the seats. I think that they could be better compared to a lot of other SUVs or higher end cars that we've reviewed. They just leave a lot to be desired. They're kind of firm. Maybe after, you know, 10, 15 more hours, they'll break in a little bit and be a little more comfortable. Side bolsters are practically non-existent. Maybe for somebody a little bit bigger, it'd be better, but for me, it's just kind of, it almost reminds me of like arena seating. It's a very flat, you know, it's not hard per se, but it's definitely not cushiony. In my 3-hour trip in it, it wasn't bad. I mean, I wasn't like uncomfortable or anything, but like, it definitely wasn't like getting into a Lexus or a BMW. I mean, obviously two totally different classes of cars, but you know, I think Kia could do a little bit more at this price point to make the seat a little bit more comfortable. But with the seats, you do of course have heated and ventilated seats for both the passenger and the driver. So that's great. But moving along to the left-hand side door, the driver door panel, you've got pretty standard buttons and functions that you would typically expect. You've got your memory seat functions, you've got the controls for your side view mirrors, unlock, lock, window buttons, and child safety. Now, however, because this is a Prestige X-Line, it does also have folding in side view mirrors. So above your dial to adjust your mirrors, you do have a button that'll flip those in for you. I think that's always handy to have, especially when you're parked in a tight space at the parking lot. To the left of the steering wheel, you, once again, pretty standard. You've got your tow button, you got the brightness setting for your digital gauge cluster, downhill assistance control, your trunk button, and your traction control is all located there to the left. On the steering wheel itself, once again, pretty standard buttons. You've got your menu selector buttons, your call button, your voice command button, a favorites button, which you can actually program to do almost anything you want, and then of course your driver's assistance buttons on the right-hand side for either your smart cruise control or to help you stay in your lane. On the stalks behind the steering wheel, once again, pretty standard. On the left-hand side, you've got your lights, your turn signal. You can set them to auto or manual. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the controls for your windshield washers, which once again does have auto, and then also the controls for the windshield wash, or the Then also the controls for the rear window washer as well. So that's all right there. No, nothing too fancy or shocking about there. No paddle shifters or anything, so it does feel pretty empty behind the steering wheel. You know, one thing I will point out that I actually was surprised about, and I'm not a big fan of because I just get so used to it and I love it. This is a manual adjustable steering wheel, so it's not an oscillating one where you can just use a switch and get it to your desired position. It doesn't move when you go to get out or anything like that. However, I must say that's not really required. It's very roomy in the leg area for this Telluride, so I don't feel like it needs to automatically move at least, but it is manual. As for the steering wheel comfortability itself, it's pretty thin. I like ones that are a little bit thicker, a little bit easier to grab onto. I feel like that gives a little bit less strain on my hands, but you know, the leather is soft. It's also a heated steering wheel, so that's nice too. Moving on to the right, of course, you've got your engine start-stop button, and you actually have a ton of tactical buttons on this Telluride. You've got things like your navigation, your map, radio, media, hazards, seek, another favorites button, and a setup button. Now the dial on the left is for your volume control, whereas the dial on the right-hand side is for your tuning. And then below that is where we get to our climate control settings. So you've got your heated steering wheel, the driver's temperature control, and then, you know, your front defrost, fan speed, rear controls. It is a tri-climate HVAC system, so you can have a separate climate for your passenger and your driver, as well as for back in the rear. So that's always nice to have. Everybody gets their own comfortability, and that's great. Moving along below that, you do have a wireless charging pad, as well as two USB ports, a Type A and a Type C. And you also have a 12-volt outlet, so a cigarette-style outlet there. The wireless charging pad kind of leaves a lot to be desired because it's really finicky based on where you place your phone on it. And it's kind of in a difficult position. Now, one thing I will note, jumping a little bit ahead here, is that the CarPlay in this is only wired. So your Android Auto, your Apple CarPlay, they're only wired. And when you have your phone in that little cubby and you're trying to, you know, use CarPlay, it actually doesn't fit in there very well. You kind of have to like bend the cord, which can be damaging. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate there. And then you've got your gear selector, which, you know, you can actually shift manually. If you need second for whatever reason, you can do that. Behind that is where you've got your drive mode selector. And, you know, the drive modes actually are pretty spot on this. You've got your comfort mode, your sport mode, eco mode, snow mode, and a smart mode. So that's handy, as well as a center differential lock. Moving on beyond that, you do have your electronic parking brake, your parking sensor, your 360 camera view if you need that. You can turn off the engine shut off at stoplights and things like that with the button here on the left. And it's got that button that is making a comeback that I actually do like, the auto hold. And what that means is that when you come to a stoplight and it's red, you just hit the brake, and when you come to a stop, you can let go of the brake and it'll just sit there until you hit the gas. I think that's actually kind of nice. Moving up above everything is where things start to get a little bit more fancy. You've got two 12.3-inch displays, one for your digital gauge cluster and one for your infotainment center, and they're very big, very crisp, and they've got a very unique like UI to them compared to other manufacturers and things that we've reviewed. It's not too cluttered, it's not hard to find things, it's very responsive, you know, so all in all, very good. And it's also got a couple features that are unique to this Telluride. There's the passenger talk, which you see Steve and I did test out, and I don't know, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's a great thought, but I feel like they just didn't finish it because Steve could hear me perfectly in the back, but I couldn't hear him in the front. So I'm not too sure. It's a one-way radio, I guess. And then there's a quiet mode. So, you know, if you're on a long road trip and you got the kids in the back and they're sleeping and the wife is passed out, you turn on quiet mode and it makes it so all your audio is only coming out of right here in the driver's seat. And I think that's actually really handy because I'm one of those people, when I go on a road trip, I turn on music. I don't care if everybody's sleeping. I'm driving, you're gonna deal with it. So that's actually pretty nice. I don't have to go in and mess with a bunch of audio settings so that it does that. It can do that automatically. I think that's pretty handy. Now, some neat things on the driver's side here with the digital gauge cluster. It does have digital turn signals, turn signal cameras anyways. So what that means is when you turn, like say you turn on your left turn signal, it actually takes up the area where your miles per hour is, and it displays a live camera of your left-hand side there. I actually think that's pretty handy. And then it does the same in the RPM dial with your right-hand side when you turn on that one. Now, this Telluride does also have a heads-up display. Now, it doesn't really offer a ton of information, but enough to help you out. It shows you the speed limit, your miles per hour, and it'll show when somebody's in your blind spot. It doesn't pop up the navigation or anything like that if you're trying to follow directions, so you do still have to look over to the right in order to figure out where you gotta turn. I do kind of like the ones where it has the navigation on the heads-up display. You know, a little less head turning is always better. Now, in this Kia Telluride SX Prestige X-Line, it does have 2 captain's chairs in the middle row. Now, these captain chairs are actually heated. You don't get any ventilation, but you have heated seats, and you know, that's handy. But they look good. They've got, you know, the same texture and same look as the front seats, so they're nice. In the rear though, you do have a lot of power options. On both the driver's seat and passenger seat, you have a USB-C port on each. And then on the bottom of the center console, you've got a 12-volt outlet, a 115 for a 3-prong power cord, and that's it. Above the infotainment screen, you do have, of course, both a normal and a digital rear view mirror with 6 HomeLink buttons, so you can control just about anything. You also have a storage container for your glasses. You've got the controls for the rear moonroof, which it does not open. It just has the shade that you can open or close. And then it does have a sunroof as well, so your controls for the sunroof are there as well. You've got the button for your Kia Connect, for your SOS, and to either have the dome lights on or on when a door opens. It's all right there. Big buttons, big tactile buttons, very easy to get around. You're not going to be fumbling trying to figure out which one you hit. There's plenty of spacing. They're pretty nice. You've got a large glove box. You have a large center console, which also has 12-volt power in it. So like I said, this thing is just absolutely loaded with power everywhere. What I do really like about the interior of the Kia though, as you can see, it's got this, I mean, it is fake. It's fake plastic. Well, it's real plastic, but it's fake wood. But it does have this wood grain plastic that runs around, and you know, it kind of separates the silver and black leather that you have, but it looks good. Nice part is a lot of things in here actually are not plastic. I mean, sure, there's a fair amount of plastic, but like a lot of things are coated or are wrapped in leather, and you know, they don't move a lot, they don't squeak. It feels like it's actually built really well. Since this is a Prestige X-Line model, it does also have the Harman Kardon stereo system, and it sounds pretty good. Played it quite a bit, especially on these long drives, and you know, it sounds good. In the rear with the captain chairs, it is actually very easy to move them as well. And they've got a lot of control for the movement. Like, you can hit a button on the top and they'll fold them flat, but also you've got a lever to slide them forward or backwards so they're not fixed in one position. You know, the rest of the controls are manual. Only the driver and passenger seats have the automatic controls, and the driver seat is a 10-way and the passenger seat is an 8-way, but still plenty of controls for your comfortability. You can get it as fine-tuned as you like. Now, moving all the way into the back, your power options do not end in the middle row. You've got 2 more USB-C ports and another 12-volt cigarette-style outlet back there. And, you know, so everybody in the family's got plenty of options. You can basically plug in just about anything here. The second and third row has tons of room. Like I mentioned, Steve is 6'7", and he fits absolutely beautifully back there. I mean, for such a big guy, you would think he'd be a little bit more cramped, but the rear seats here, they're great for a child, they're great for an adult, they're great for a car seat. I mean, basically anybody, as long as he's not Yao Ming at 7'3", is gonna fit back there, okay? So if it's good for Steve, it's good for me anyways. There's tons of cargo space back there, and the seats actually fold pretty flat, so it's not like a 30-degree angle or anything. It's pretty well, tons of room, whether you're moving things or you're moving the family or you're going on a trip. All right, now we're doing 0 to 60 in this brand new Telluride. We've got it in sport mode. We've got our race box set up. Let's see how she does. 7.55 seconds. Not bad. I mean, we got a car seat in here, and we've got Steve. You know, Steve's a big guy at 6'8", so he's got some weight to him. As for drive comfortability, I did kind of mention the seat, how I don't feel it's the most comfortable, but other than that, it's actually fantastic. The visibility is great. It's extremely quiet. You can't hear any road noise. You can't hear any wind noise. Once again, we do have a pretty windy day with about 20-mile-per-hour winds, and even going like 50, I still don't hear anything. You hear just about nothing. The only noise that you end up hearing is when you have the auto off button on and you hear the engine kick back on. That's about the only time you hear anything. One thing that I did come across in all the miles I drove this car is, especially on the highway, it does not brake the greatest. It could use a little bit better braking, especially when you're at 80. It takes a second to slow down. So I would suggest following a little bit further back. It seems like it takes some time, but I mean, as for power, I mean, it gets up there a little bit. It's not too bad, especially if you have it in sport mode. If you're in eco mode, it's kind of snailish, sluggish. It's not that quick. But, you know, I mean, at this size of a vehicle, you can't really complain. It did do a 7.55 0 to 60, so it's obviously not that slow. We've definitely tested slower. All right, now as for pricing, the 2024 Kia Telluride starts out at $37,585 for its entry-level trim, which is the LX. The S comes in at $39,485, the EX at $43,185, the SX at $47,385, the EX X-Line $47,480, the SX X-Line at $50,880, the SX X Pro at $51,880, the SX Prestige at $52,285. The model we're driving today, which is the SX Prestige X-Line, comes in at $53,780, and the top trim, the SX Prestige Pro, comes in at $54,780.
So for the powertrain, they offer only one powertrain, which is 3.8 liter V6, and with an 8-speed automatic transmission. It produces 291 horsepower and 262 foot-pound of torque, and it's optional for all models with an all-wheel drive for extra $2,000. With all the X9 models and X Pro, it's standard all-wheel drive with the center differential lock. For the X Pro, they come with all-terrain tires. For the towing capacity, I have to ask Josh. Josh, do you know what's the towing capacity for this Telluride?
Yeah, it actually comes in at 5,000 pounds for this model. Now, there is one trim that has a higher capacity, and it is the highest trim, the X Pro, but that one comes in at 5,500 pounds. So not a big difference. I mean, it's not really changing a whole lot, but the reason for that is it does have a added transmission cooler. So if you're wanting to tow stuff a little bit heavier, you're gonna have to look at that model there.
Well, for the drive, I kind of like it. It makes me feel like I'm driving a higher-end SUV like a Mercedes, and some of the features that actually Mercedes don't even have for the base model. Like, I really like the passenger talk and the quiet mode, especially your family, and you don't want, like Josh said, you don't want to bother them while they're sleeping. You don't want to make noise to wake them up while you're doing a road trip. Besides that, I like the turn camera. When you put on turn signal, left or right, you can see the image from your screen, you know. Normally, I know that is pretty expensive to add on. So I think it's cool they offer that for this entry-level SUV.
Now, Steve, there are actually other safety features in here as well. It's got a whole suite of them. I mean, you get things such as forward collision warning, blind spot collision warning, rear cross traffic collision warning, safe exit and highway assist driving, parking distance warning, smart cruise control with stop and go, and parking collision avoidance assistance. You know, and also for a lot of these things too, if you start to do them, it will notify you with a vibrate. You know, not as much beeping, so I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, so I mean, all the things to assist you on the road so you don't hit somebody.
Actually, Kia and Hyundai is still offering the best warranty in the US, which is 10 year, 100,000 mile. And I did some research on it, and actually it was kind of surprised me. They even cover the wheel bearing and the fuel injector. It's a big thing, the fuel injector, especially this model has a GDI, the gasoline direct injector, which is they know for problems like building carbon in the injector, so it will call up the fuel injector. It depends on the car, but normally a fuel injector pretty expensive for each one, so plus labor. So, and they cover it for the warranty, so it's pretty good, I would say. Another thing, my dad had a Kia before, probably like 20 years ago. He had a Kia Sportage, and he bought it brand new, and always had problem with the airbag. So he always take it to the dealer to fix it, but they never fix it. So he ended up trading in, because it's really taking him a lot of downtime from work. So one thing like Kia has been improved is the quality. You know, I still remember that car is pretty crappy, you know, in terms of quality. Like interior is pretty plastic, and then it's rust really easy. 20 years later, actually, I kind of like it. You know, I kind of like how they do it. You know, they kind of persuade you to make you feel like you're driving a high-end car. But for me, would I buy it? One thing I really don't like is the name Kia, K-I-A. You know what's that mean in the military?
Oh, well, yes. Yes.
What does that mean?
Killed in action.
Exactly. So I'm not a big fan of the name, you know. For me, it feels like it's kind of bring me a bad luck. But besides that, I really like the quality, the style actually pretty good. And especially Hyundai bought Kia like not long ago, and everything changed from there, I think.
So in conclusion, what do we think of the 2024 Kia Telluride SX Prestige X-Line? I mean, I think it's good. I think it's a great value for what it costs. I think that it's fantastic for getting the family around. I think that it's great for moving things. I mean, if you're trying, like say you're moving your house and you need to pack boxes in here, you'll be getting a lot of them in here, you know, or for winter driving, you know, it's got plenty of features or capability that is in here. I think it looks great. And, you know, for the price at $54,000, it's really not all that bad considering your mid-size SUV market. It could definitely get a lot higher than that. I mean, you're still less than an entry-level Lexus or Mercedes. What about you, Steve? What do you think?
Yeah, I really like it, especially I have a family, so it's really practical, you know. Like moving stuff around, you take a kid to a road trip or family. It's really comfortable too, and it's really quiet, you know, for the price range for this car, you know.
Well, there you have it. We like the Kia. I mean, would you buy one?
Well, like I said, I'm not a Kia guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a Kia guy either. But if I was coming down to it and I needed to pick a good SUV and my budget had to stay under $60,000, this would definitely be in one of my top choices. Yeah. Smash up the likes, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next video.